Hi everyone, welcome to this series of videos where we will be interviewing various people who either suffer from mental illness or advocate for mental health. Today we have a special guest. Her name is Elyssa. Thank you for speaking with us today. Just to give some background info though about myself, my name is Katrina. I was diagnosed bipolar 14 years ago and I've been living with it ever since. I've been going through the ups and the downs. I've dealt with the stigma that's associated with it. To be honest, a lot of it is also self-perpetuated, but that's a whole nother story. Essentially, because of that stigma, I wanted to do something to help destigmatize mental illness and normalize the conversations about mental health. So I hope that these videos will do that and show everyone that you're not alone, that it's okay to speak up about it, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. So with that, I'd like to introduce my co-host, Kat.
Thank you, Katrina. Hi, everyone. My name is also Katrina, but I go by Kat. And a little background about myself is that I'm currently a second-year psychology student at the University of California, Davis. And just a brief story. So throughout my whole college, my time in college, I was a nutrition science major. And just this year, I very recently switched to being a psychology student because of my newfound interest and strong passion for mental health and wanting to destigmatize it after trying out therapy for the first time in my life in college. And I will say that personal experience has tremendously changed me, and it's made me the person who I am today, and actually introduced the whole field of work that I want to get into. And I'm super passionate about helping everyone on their journeys towards discovery, self-discovery, and healing. So this is also why I am honored to be here. Our guest here is Elyssa, and it's great. So I met Elyssa through My State of Mind, which is the current nonprofit mental health organization that we are both members of. It originally started from the Philippines as Talang Dalisay, but it's now expanded into a global network, which is My State of Mind. And so one of the newest projects that we had this year was a podcast about our well-being and such. And so on the second episode, I believe Elyssa and I met through hosting that podcast episode together. So that was super fun, and we connected greatly through that. And it's amazing with what how we can connect through this pandemic. We did it. She's from Melbourne right now, Melbourne, Australia. I'm from SoCal in California. And so, yeah, without further ado, we can get started into the questions.
So, do you have any specific interests regarding the scope of mental health? And if so, what are they?
Sure, great. Thanks for the intro, Kat. A couple of interests. I don't know. A couple of interests I have in terms of mental health would be youth mental health, because it is something that I have lived experience with or in. During the pandemic, a really close family member of mine had suffered in a few really challenging mental health episodes, and that kind of just opened my eyes to how much I need to learn about mental health within the youth. And so actually that is the only main interest that I have, or focus that I have in terms of mental health, and that's why I wanted to go forward in uni to learn more about it and maybe pursue a career in it. I'm still kind of feeling my way around it, but yeah, youth and mental health is definitely the way forward for me.
Great. Yeah, I think that's a very important area that we should focus on, because I mean, they're our next generation. So if they're suffering right now, it's not a good sign for the future.
Yeah.
And just speaking from my own experience, that's when I developed my disorders during while I was in high school.
Mhm.
So it's definitely close to my heart, and I feel like I'm really glad that you're going into this. I mean, it's unfortunate for your relative or your friend that
Yeah.
suffered from it, but I guess if you look at the silver lining, it brought you to this area where you want to deal with mental health. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
really glad.
definitely.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it also kind of highlighted my own, um, I guess, shortcomings with mental health because I feel like I've been pushing it aside for the longest time. And like, I'm in my early 20s now. Well, I'm in my early 20s. I feel like my entire high school life, I've been kind of avoiding this issue. And during the pandemic, it just highlighted things that I was running away from. And so, yeah, I don't know. What about you, Kat? What do you think?
Yeah. Oh, so many things I can relate to. Where do I start? First of all, I relate very much on how you said, personal experiences with family is always difficult, especially when it's about mental health.
Mm,
I can say for sure too myself that the reason why I got into possibly wanting to be a therapist, and just like passionate about mental health overall is I saw a lot of dysfunctions in my family unit that I didn't even know were not normal or unhealthy behaviors, and it was only until therapy that made me realize that. So to add on to what you're saying, like one of my options that I'm really looking into, aside from social work, is a licensed marriage family therapist. And so for family therapy, it's usually a common misconception that you just work with married couples, and it's not. Like you can also work with children, and
mm,
that is deep into my heart too, because I want to be like a children's therapist, so
yeah.
or some sort of that some sort of some similarity to that kind of field, because uh just to add on, like I currently I got accepted as a disability rights advocacy committee board member for my university, and so the chairperson is actually a parent who is super passionate to not pat well who is supportive about mental health too, and she has a son. And as a from a parent perspective, she said that right now the current generation is in need of a lot of children therapy
Mm,
um, children therapists, because it's often overlooked. Like
yeah.
we always work with these adults, when really the root of these problems and these issues that arise from society starts from when you are a kid, and when your mind is a blank canvas coming into the world. And so why not prevent it, like at the very core,
Right.
before having it manifest
100%.
later? So that's great. Yeah, that's what I wanted to add. So yay, I just it's very good that you're doing that.
Oh, thanks.
What are you currently doing, or what do you want to do to spread awareness on mental health? And also
Okay,
you can elaborate on your specific interest.
sure. Well, as I said before, I am trying to pursue going into educating myself in youth and mental health, and maybe just starting off slow, because this is still kind of like a touchy topic for me personally, and I'm very scared about what I could uncover by learning more about it. But in terms of spreading awareness, I am thinking about putting both of my strengths, which is graphic design and just being a listener, an empath. But yeah, just combining that and potentially starting like a creative outlet page for me, which would spread more like stories about mental health, and just collecting stories within the youth, just to tie everything together, right? Because I feel like this is a little bit all over the place, but because my focus is youth and mental health, I wanted to kind of collect stories from my own friends and their friends and just anyone that I can connect with, and have a page that is for the world to see, I guess, that really just says that mental health shouldn't really define a person or their worth, because I don't know how it is over in America, but in Australia, um, it's pretty open. Like mental health is something that you talk about openly during like lunch. In high school, I remember we would have like a circle group and we would just like air out our feelings and just talk about um, somebody's trip to the therapist. And it's just like this very open and welcoming space. And I kind of want to translate that through my page that I'm trying to make right now. And so, yeah, to answer the question, I'm trying to make an outlet for people like me and others where it's a safe space and where they can feel supported. Um, yeah,
That's
very early on
wonderful.
stage. Sorry. Sorry.
That's wonderful. Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, it's a similar idea for me too. Like that's
Mm,
why the whole point of these interviews is
yeah.
to kind of share your story and
Exactly.
show others that, we're all in this together. And
Mm,
I mean, I guess it is a little different here in the States because we don't actually open up too much about
mm,
mental health.
Mm-mm.
I mean, it's starting to, but definitely not to the point where we're discussing our
mm,
therapy sessions or anything like that. So it's not really as open, but I definitely hope that we can move towards that direction, because that's ultimately the goal that we have, and I think that it needs to be openly discussed, and that no one should be afraid to be talking about it. So that's great though that Australia is more progressive than
Right.
America.
More progressive than America. Naps
I
all
hate,
around.
I know, right? I hate to diss our country, but
I know. I mean, it's facts. Like,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that's a wonderful thing that you are taking on. I wish you all the success for that. And like you can always hit me up if you
of
if you ever
course.
need any help or need support or publicity with that.
Oh,
Because
thank you. Thank you, Kat. And
yes,
like,
for sure.
sorry, I just wanted to add, I'm so sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I just wanted to add to Katrina, like, kudos to you because I know how hard it is to break out of something that is like super stigmatized, super just like, how do I put this? You kind of like a pioneer. Both of you are pioneers in a sense because you're brave enough to do something about it and be open about it despite like maybe backlash. And so I don't know how many times you've heard support, but likewise, like if you ever need a holler or like someone to hype you up or just like support, I'm here to give it because this is something that needs to be super talked about
Yeah.
and um, something that needs to be very transparent for the future, I guess. But yeah, sorry, go on, Kat. I
Oh,
didn't mean to cut you
Yes,
off.
thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you for adding that. Yes, we need to cultivate a space of openness and trust, right? As mental health advocates, we got to be there for each other
Mm.
as a community together in solidarity. Um,
Yep. Yep. What are some of the things that you wish people knew about mental health?
Some of the things that I wish people knew about mental health would be that mental health is as important as your physical health. Um, they do work together. So if you're neglecting one, then the other one will suffer. And so it's really important that you have a grasp of both physical and mental health so that it helps you out more in the future. Um, the other thing is try to not let your mental health illness or issues define you as a person. It can get really overwhelming when you get a diagnosis or just when it's brought to light. And so there needs to be a good level of positive, like self talk. And I know this isn't really um, possible for everyone, but a really good support network, whether it be your family, your friends, your maybe coworkers, if that's who you like, you need to have people around you that you can um, get strength from, and that there are avenues where you can get help, one of which is therapy. And I know that Kat has experience with it. I'm not entirely sure with Katrina, but it's really important that you get help through a professional so that your treatment or you getting better is more guided, and it's not just through somebody who is not really educated on it, if that makes any sense. And that also ties in with self-diagnosing, where it's really, really, really dangerous if you start self-diagnosing. And I think I'm just gonna leave it there. I'm not gonna elaborate on that last one, but yeah.
I've definitely gone through
Mm.
different therapists and
Mhm.
psychiatrists, psychologists. I don't even know the difference between some of them, but yeah, it's invaluable to have therapy. I think everyone should do it because they're also, in a way, kind of like a mentor, and they can give advice and, non-biased help or,
Mhm.
feedback. And I mean, I've gained so much just from my therapist this past year with COVID and everything. And yeah, I think it's an invaluable thing to have therapy. And when you were talking about physical health and mental health, that's so important. I truly believe that they affect each other. They,
Mm.
you can't have good physical health without good mental health, and you can't have good mental health without good physical health. They go hand in hand, and mind and body. I do believe that you have to maintain both. They're both very important, so I can definitely relate to that.
Absolutely. We as human beings are not just like, we are not simple individuals. We are complex and multifaceted in that different aspects of our health, it constitutes us. So like, to leave out physical health and just focus on mental health, that would be incomplete on taking care of ourselves, and vice versa, to leave out mental health and just focusing on physical health, it wouldn't be balanced. And like, so many people, because personally speaking, my sister is actually gonna become a DPT, physical therapist. Like, I'm a mental health therapist, so goes hand in hand, right? But
Yeah.
like, so many, and maybe both of you know about this in the Asian culture, but it's more accepted. Like, when you have a physical injury, then yeah, like, get help. But then if you don't,
Yeah.
if it's like a mental issue, they're just like, just sweep it under the rug, or don't talk about it,
Mm.
or suck it up, or
Right.
all of these things, avoiding it. And like, if you break your arm, yes, go to the hospital. But if you feel really depressed and you can't get out of bed, what, they're
What can
just
you
gonna be
do?
like,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Definitely, yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. But both need the same type of attention.
Attention and support.
Whether, yeah, attention and support.
Okay, so Eliza, the next question we have for you is there anything that you currently do that helps your mental health, like such as self-care routines, habits, or practices?
Hmm. I am currently seeing a counselor. She's super helpful. She's just amazing. Like, I get to see her like once a month, but when I do, it's like this resurgence. Like, it's just like a power up. Just every time I talk to her, it's just like I get boosted with just so much positivity that I'm probably like lacking in my everyday life. And so that's number one. Um, I try and just like just with what I said before with physical health, I tend to put that aside and focus on my mental health. And as we have previously talked about, it's not really a good case of prioritizing one over the other, because then the balance is off. And so I try and move as much as I can where I can. And so I do see a noticeable difference when on days that I do work out versus the ones where I don't. And just seeing people, um, whether it's virtually or in person. I know it's a little difficult with COVID still around, but just like really spending time with people and being social really helps when I've got like a fog in my mind. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things you can do for self-care, right? Like
Hmm.
you can go for a walk even, something as
Yeah.
simple as that, just to get yourself moving. Um, or you can go as extreme as start running. I mean, you know, there's so many things that you can do, and
Yeah.
even as small as like painting your nails or getting your
Mhm.
hair done, you know,
Getting a
all of that
face
can
mask.
help. Getting a
Yeah.
face mask.
That's what I did this weekend.
Yeah.
10 out of 10, highly recommend.
Nice.
Yes, for
Yeah,
sure.
so yeah, I mean, like you said, physical health, it links to mental health, and
Mhm.
taking care of your body is so important. Um, and you know, also with the seeing a counselor, I'm glad that you're doing that, even if it's once a month. You know, once a month is still better than nothing.
Mhm.
And if it
Hmm.
boosts you that much, then you know, kudos. That's amazing.
Yes, exactly. Like another thing that maybe people often find that can be a challenge is finding the right counselor or the right therapist for
Yes.
them.
Mhm.
I know it's tricky to find a good fit because the thing about starting always a new session with new people, like with new therapists, is that you got to start over and then open up to a whole new person you don't know, and the whole process can be very difficult or uncomfortable. And I think just for anyone out there who's listening, and you, Eliza, like there's always someone who will be a good fit out there, and um, like just never stop quitting that, because I'm a firm believer that therapy, yes, is for everyone, and that it's an asset. Really, it's not only for people who are like crazy or in severe need of mental health help, because mental health is universal. We all
Yeah.
have mental health, regardless if you have a mental illness or not. Like, it's just, do you want to better yourself? Then go to therapy. As simple as that.
There's also a con when it comes to therapy because on access to therapy,
Mhm.
there's a lot of things that prevent you from even seeking help, because you have to have insurance, first of all, and then sometimes when you try and make phone calls, you can't even find someone who's available
Yeah.
time frame. And I mean, I've experienced that so many times where I'm in a crisis and I need to see somebody right away, but no one's available for another 6 weeks.
Mhm.
So,
Hmm.
I mean, you kind of just have to keep at it and don't get discouraged, because eventually you will find somebody, and
Yeah.
it the benefits will outweigh everything. So, it's better to just keep going.
And
Amen.
also, as more and more people are talking about this and advocating and educating about mental health, the system hopefully will have it more accessible to people in the long run and in future generations. Like, accessibility of mental health services is, I think, it should be a priority more than it is now. So that's a good
Mhm.
point that you bring up, Katrina. Like in the US, at least, I don't know how it's like in Australia.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Would you be able to speak about that? Like, do you know
Yeah.
how accessible it is there?
Yeah.
I can speak for my state. I don't know um, how it is Australia wide, but sorry, for Victoria, um, we have a scheme through the government and Medicare, where you're entitled to, I think, 10 free sessions. And so financially, there isn't like a barrier, but accessibility wise, it's similar, where there are a lot of psychologists and stuff, but there's, because it's such a public, um, it's public access, there is a bit of a wait time. I was, for example, on hold for a year for
Wow.
one psychologist, and so at that time I really
Ooh.
needed it. And so um yeah, access wise, we're in a similar situation where
Yeah.
you really need
Yeah.
either just like get a private one or
Yeah.
an alternative, which is like a counselor and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you really do just have to keep at it, because even though there are these things that will limit you from getting help, there is avenues where like there's short-term help, which is like hotlines, and they're called Headspace, and so it's a good kind of in between. If you really really need it, there's that
Mm-hmm.
option for you. Yeah,
Definitely.
we're all in the same boat, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, yeah, you touched on that. There's a bunch of apps that are now available.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the key is to seek therapy when you don't need it, because by the time you do need it, you'll at least have it ready and available to you. Because when you're in a crisis and you're struggling to find somebody, it's more difficult than if you had already had a therapist to begin with.
Yeah.
So I think it's key to find somebody when you're already in a good state, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that's very important. So I just wanted to point that out because
Yeah.
it's for anything with mental health. You want to try and prevent the worst case scenario ahead of time. So is key.
Absolutely.
I guess our last question would be, what is the best advice that you have for anyone who is struggling with mental health?
I wouldn't call it the best advice, but an advice would just keep going. Oh my god, that sounds so just like cliche. That's the word. It's so, you just have to find something that keeps you going, and like literally keeps you going, and you just gotta take each day as it is. Just like do the next right thing. Take it easy, because the only, it's there's a lot of things I could say right now, but in general, there's only this. That's like your life. You're in control. Just gotta take it easy, and it'll work out. I feel like I'm saying this to myself right now, but it's
Yeah,
just
a
yeah.
lot of it is, I mean, I would definitely say the same things, and it would apply to me too. So, essentially, the advice that I would give myself would be to, like you said, keep going, but to also try and stay positive in a proactive way.
Yes.
So that means, being mindful, uh,
Mm-hmm.
being in the present, because, they do say that, like, when you live in the past, it's depression, and when you live in the future, it's anxiety.
Yeah.
So really, the best thing that you can do is just to be mindful and be present. So there are a lot of things that you can do to help mitigate, any issues with mental health.
Mhm.
And I think that the most important thing, though, is to try and seek help when you need it and before you need it. So,
Yes.
it's something that doesn't really get talked about as much because, they say it's usually in crisis mode when they say,
Mm-hmm.
oh, seek help, seek
Mm-hmm.
professional help. But I think it's more important to actually seek the help ahead of time. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's so many things you can say to someone who's struggling with mental health.
So much, yes. I love the idea about being proactive about it. Living in the moment is essential to, you know, not letting to combat not letting your history interfere with your destiny. It's like the only time you have is now. And um, another thing that I was gonna say, take it one day at a time. So important, because I find myself so many times like I have a lot going on as a current college student, and then like I have a lot of extracurriculars as um, a club officer and a member of all these things, and so I find myself like thinking about the future, and I'm like, wait, I'm just stressing myself. I'm like reliving it a second time if I'm just keep on thinking about it. So like I'm currently like in this interview now, enjoying the insight that I'm taking in, and that was like very good advice. So
Yeah,
that was great.
yeah,
And yeah, my 2 cents is to not let your history interfere with your destiny.
Love it.
that's great advice. Yeah, I mean, and also try to find joy in even the very little things that you do,
Yeah.
whether it's just going for a walk or thanking your
Mhm.
socks for keeping your feet warm.
Yeah,
Just the little things that you kind
yeah.
of overlook throughout the day.
Or being
And
thankful for the trees you're seeing because they allow you to
yeah,
breathe.
right.
Mhm.
I mean, it's very hippie like, but you
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
just have to, you kind of just have to be thankful for everything. I mean, just don't overlook
For
anything.
legs, like
Great.
to walk. Yeah. Like, yeah, I keep a gratitude journal. Highly recommend.
Oh,
It
that's
That's
helps.
great.
great.
Like I write
Yeah.
down like 3 things I'm grateful for every day at night, and then by the end of the week, I pick out like the best 3 things out of all those 21 things I wrote down, and then
That's
at
a
the
really
end
good
of the year,
strategy.
at
Yeah.
the end of the year, you'll have 52 times 3 things that are amazing.
That's a good way to
Oh,
do it. I I started gratitude journal last year, and by I'd say like after a month, it kind of got repetitive for me, so I ended up just stopping. But I
Yeah.
think what you're doing is a good way to, stay consistent with it and keep going because
Yeah.
you're going back and reviewing it to see which ones you like the most and remembering it by the end of the year. So
Mhm.
that's a really good strategy. I like that. I like that a
Yeah,
lot.
I recommend it also because it not that it like it manipulates you or anything, but it rewires your brain to change for like things that you can focus more like on the positive things and like
mhm.
notice the subtleties and nuances of
Yeah.
daily life that are often overlooked. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's great. Highly recommend.
I think journaling in general is
Yeah.
just a valuable tool. I started journaling from my last depressive episode in the fall,
Hmm.
and it's been tremendous for me because um, you could do anything with journaling. You could just do free writing. You can write just any thoughts that come to your mind, or what happened during your day, or you can even do things like positive quotes, and that's what I ended up doing. I just start writing positive quotes
Yeah.
every morning and I just
Affirmations.
devote affirmations. Yeah. I just start to do that and I devote like an hour of my day every morning to do that. And it kind of
Yeah.
sets your mind in the right state. So you're starting your day off on the right foot.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, there's a lot of things you can do
Yeah.
to help with your mental health.
Love it.
So is there anything that you would like to add to this dialogue or
Before we wrap it up.
I think you guys have said it all, to be honest. I was going to add about the journaling because that really was a really helpful tool for me.
Hmm.
And maybe an alternative would be for somebody who is more spiritual or faithful, I guess, is doing devotionals,
Mm.
which is basically the same thing as affirmations, but sprinkle
more
on that
spiritual?
Yeah.
spirituality.
Right.
But yeah, no,
Yeah.
everything you said, spot on. It's great. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Eliza, for meeting with us today and
You.
sharing
Thank
your insights
Yes.
and your advice.
That was
I'm
great.
really, yeah. Just I'm really glad that you're, going into the mental health for youth. I think that's so important, especially now. And
you.
Hmm.
where we're going through with coronavirus is just,
Yeah.
magnifying all the issues that we have
Yeah.
right now with
Yes.
mental health. So
Mm.
it's so important, and I'm really glad that you're getting involved with this. We need more people like you and Kat
Oh yeah,
to go
most
into
definitely.
going into psychology or anything that has to do with
Yeah.
mental health because
Mm.
Hmm.
it's so critical. Um,
Hmm.
and with that, I just wanted to thank all our viewers for tuning in. I'd like to
Hmm.
thank my co-host Kat as well for helping me host this interview. And I hope that you've gained some invaluable information from this interview. And I hope that you realize that you're not alone. That's the most important thing, and that it's okay to speak up. I really want to open up a conversation on mental health, mental illness, and hopefully destigmatize mental illness. It's something that will affect future generations, and if we start now, then hopefully they won't have to deal with the fear, live with the guilt and anxiety and all of that, because we're doing something now. So I just wanted to close with that, and I hope that you'll tune in with our next interview. So thank you again, Elyssa, for meeting with us. It was great speaking with you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Kat.
Thank you, Eliza.
Thank you so much. Keep doing you guys.
Thank you.